Hello guys, I hope you all doing well. In today's tutorial, it will be a little bit long, but we're gonna see how to create this really cool fantasy photo manipulation or photo composition that you can see in here using Adobe Photoshop. So if this is something that you always wanted to try, you can just follow along. But before we're gonna do that, make sure to subscribe and comment and leave a like. Alright, so let's get to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and open Photoshop, and then let's go to File, New, and I will put 4050 pixels for the width and 3240 for the height, and I will keep 72 in the resolution and RGB in the color mode, and I will press OK. Alright, now the first thing that we're going to add is the background, so let's go to our file and choose our background. And then I will resize it to something like this, but I want these places to be shown. So what I'm gonna do is I will stretch it a little bit, so I will put it in the center just like that, and then I'll press shift and I will go to this top edge in here and I will put it up by pressing shift, and I will do the same for the down part in here. It will stretch it a little bit, but it's not that obvious, which is good. And I will one click on this check mark. Alright, now I will delete this background and I will call this BG for background. Alright, next I will create a new layer and I will call this girl. And then I will right click and choose convert to smart object. And then I will double click on this smart object source right here to open it in a new tab, as you can see. And now we'll go and open the image of the girl that we'll be using. Just drag it and open it in here. And let's make it a little bit bigger, somewhere around here. And I will one click on this check mark. Alright, so we're gonna stick a while in this smart object because we want to cut the girl. And also I want to add some hairs in the edges, so it will be better. And do some frequency separation to the face. Alright, so let's start with cutting the girl from the background. So we'll just use the subject method, so we'll go to select and choose subject. Alright, as you can see, our selection is done. Now we'll go to select and choose select and mask. Alright, I think we have a good selection. I mean, it's better if you do it with the pen tool, but for this tutorial it's good to use the select and mask. Alright, now I only want to add a little bit of smoothness to the edge, so let's go to the global refinement and open it and add like 14 in the smooth. And also I will shift the edge a little bit to -10 or 12. Alright, and I will press OK. And then I will add a layer mask to our selection, and now we have the girl in here selected in a very good way. Alright, now I will add a new layer on top and I will call this hairs. And then I will put a solid color just under the main layer. So I will go to adjustment and choose solid color. And I will choose like an orange color just for us to see where we paint. Just like that, and I will press OK. It's a green color and I will put it under the main layer in here. Alright, now we'll select the hairs layer, and then I will go to my brushes and I will right click and I will choose this hair brush in here that you will find down in the link from the description below. Alright, so I'm gonna start painting the hair. As you can see, this brush is, I mean, it doesn't look like for the hairs, but it do a very good job to make the hairs. So let me make it a little bit smaller, like a lot smaller actually, like 7, maybe 5 pixels. I can see the pixels in here, as you can see. And I will zoom in and I will start painting by sampling the color by pressing Alt or Option. You can sample color while I'm in the brush like that, and I will start painting just like this. I will forward this section because it will take a long time, but I will just start to show you that the brush is actually really good for the hairs. Also, I want to make this black, so let's do this quick. Let's sample color from here, and I will add like more hairs because the background was red, and it's better to hide the background using hairs, just like that. Alright, now we'll sample like a brighter color from here, and I will paint, because as you can see we have this little bit bright, so I will paint a little bit of the blonde color or the bright color of the hairs. This will hide it very good. Maybe a little bit in the edge in here, just like that. And also, if you find it hard for you to paint, like for example this way, you can always rotate your canvas by pressing R on your keyboard, and this will allow you to rotate the canvas. And then press B again and sample color. Now you can paint like this. As you can see, it's a lot easier. Maybe you can even rotate it even more, like that. Press B and keep painting. Alright, so I will forward this and I will see you in a second.
Alright, I think this is okay, and we're gonna add a lot of adjustments, so I think it will look even better. And I also like it to be a little bit messy like this, so it will look good for the fantasy image. Alright, next we're gonna do a little bit of frequency separation to the face only. So to do that, I will just first delete this color fill, and then I want to make a snap image or a snapshot of the whole canvas. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E all together at the same time, and this will make a new layer with only what we have with the hairs and everything. And let's call this original. Alright, good. And then I will hide these two layers in here. Then I will select the original layer that we created, and I want to make 2 copies of it. So I'm gonna press Ctrl J 2 times, and this will make 2 copies. And then I will name this copy in here to texture, and I will name the second one to base, or let's name it blur. Alright, now we'll hide the texture layer for now, and I will select the blur layer, and then I will go to filter and I will choose blur and Gaussian blur. Let me just zoom in. Alright, so we want to create a blur that we can see still the features of the face. So we don't want it to be that much like this. We want it to somewhere to be like this. For example, 3.4 pixels for this image. Or maybe I would add it a little bit more to around 3.8. But it depends on the resolution of your image. If the resolution is higher, you might need to put more radius, or if it's lower, you might need like less pixels in the radius. But for this one, I would keep it 3.8 and I will press OK. Alright, next I will select the texture layer and make it visible. And then I will go to image and I will choose apply image. Alright, as you can see, we have it in here in merge, but we don't want that. We want to choose our own layers. So let's open this and choose the blur image that we just created in here, and then I will keep the RGB in here for the channel, but for the blending I will change it to subtract. And you might find it black because you might have different values, but make sure to put 2 in the scaling and 128 in the offset, and of course 100% in the opacity. This one is actually like the value of the 50% gray. Alright, and press OK. Next, I will change the blending mode of this texture layer to linear light. Alright, you can see there is nothing, not a big difference. There is no change, but we're gonna apply like the change in this blur layer in here. So let's go to the lasso tool, and in this feather in here, you might have it like in 0 pixels. Just change it to like 6 or 7 pixels in here. And then I will start to make a selection in the area that I want to apply my frequency separation. But as you can see in here, I have it to merge, which means that I can make like more than one selection. And I will show you, you can just make a selection in the forehead in here, just like that. And then I will go to the cheek, for example, and then we'll make another selection in here. And as you can see, I have the both selections in here. I want to add this area in here and a little bit in here, and also this part, just like that, and a little bit in the upper lips in here, and in the nose, maybe this part in here. And this way you can add as many selections as you want. And on top of the eyes, just like that, and in here too. And let's add another one in the neck area in here. Alright, so after that I will keep selecting the blur layer in here, and then I will go to filter and I will choose blur, Gaussian blur. And if I zoom in, you can see this is in 0 pixel radius, but if I put the radius more, you can see the image will change, as you can see. So just put it around 4 or 5 pixels in here, just like that, and I will press OK. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command D to deselect. And let me just put these two layers in a group by selecting them both and press Ctrl Command G, and you can see the before and after. Look how smooth that is. Alright, but as you can see, because I put the blending mode to linear light, we have this problem in here in the edge, and I want to remove this. So to do that, I'm gonna apply a black layer mask on this group. Let's call this frequency separation. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Alt or Option on my keyboard and one click on this layer mask, and this will hide everything. And then I will select my brush, and I will choose a normal soft brush in here. And using this brush, I will just paint on the face area that we applied our effect or our frequency separation. So using white as my foreground color, and while I'm selecting the layer mask, I will just paint just like this. So I can reveal all the details that we added, or all that smoothness. Alright, you see this is before and after. Alright, I think it looks good. Now if I hide this layer, you can see I need to add more in here. Maybe delete this area in here. Alright, I think it looks good. Alright, so we are done with our things in the smart objects of the girl. So I'm just gonna close this, and I will make sure to press yes to save the changes. Alright, let's zoom in and check our hairs. Now I think it looks good. And let's press Ctrl Command T and make it a little bit smaller and put it in here for now. Alright, now we're gonna add all the other assets that we are going to use. Yeah, let's add everything and then we're gonna put everything together. Alright, so let's go to our folder again and let's actually cut the fish image. So we'll take it and open it in here. Alright, and I would want to click on this check mark. Alright, so I'm gonna use again the subject selection for this. So I'm gonna go to select and choose subject, and let's see. Alright, I think we have a decent selection. Maybe there are some areas in here that we need to select, so let's use the quick selection tool, and I need to make it in the minus, so I'm just gonna subtract or remove this selection in here. Alright, and by pressing Alt or Shift I can add to the selection just like that. And let's go to this place in here and I will remove the selection. Alright, and I will do the same in here. Alright, now we'll choose select and mask, and let's see our selection. Yeah, I think we need to smooth it a little bit, so let's go to the smoothing here in the global refinement and choose like 14 in the smooth, and let's shift the edge a little bit to -10 or 12, and I will press OK. And then I will want to click on this layer mask to commit my selection, but I want to clean it even more using my brush, so I will select the layer mask and I will use like maybe like 85 or 88 hardness in here, and I will make sure that's 100% opacity with 100% flow, and I will delete all this in here using black as my foreground color, just like that. Alright, and I will do the same in this area in here, as you can see. And I think I need to add this a little bit and then delete all this blue in here. Alright, and let's check this. Alright, I think it looks good. Now we'll right click and choose convert to smart object, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T and I will make it just like that, and I will put this in here and I will want to click on this check mark. Alright, next we need to add this one in here, so we'll take it and open it in here. And for this one I only want this fish in here, so I will want to click on this check mark, and then I will use my lasso tool and I will select this one only. Alright, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command J, and this will create it in a new layer. And let's delete this and select this layer, and then we'll call it small fish, and let's call this big fish, and let's select the small fish, and then I will go to select and choose subject. Alright, we need to add more selection, so let's go to the quick selection tool, and I will hide this one in here, maybe add this part, or we can add it using the brush later. So let me just remove this one in here. Alright, and then I will select and mask. Alright, now I will add a little bit of smoothness. So let's go and choose smooth to 12, and I will shape the edges a little bit to minus 14 or 15, and I will press OK. And then I will one click on this layer mask to add a layer mask in here, and using my brush again, the same brush, I will delete all these things that I don't want, using black as my foreground color. I will just delete like that, and I will do the same in here, just to have a little bit clean selection in all these areas in here. Alright. Alright, and then I will right click and choose convert to smart object, and I will press Ctrl Command T and make it smaller, and I will just leave this in here. Alright, I think the only thing that we need to add is the cloud image or PNG, which is this one. So I'm just gonna take it and open it in here. Alright, and I will one click on this check mark, and now we are ready to go. Alright, so now we have our main layers that we're gonna use. So let's start with the background. So let me hide all these 4 layers on top and make only the background visible. Alright, so we're gonna, let's actually right click and convert these to smart objects, because we're gonna apply a camera raw filter, and I always like to have the option for me to go maybe adjust the camera raw filter if I want. So it's better to have it as a smart object, but it depends on you. You can do that or no. So let's go to filter and choose camera raw filter. Alright, now we have our background in here. Just make this to default. So I want to go to the basics in here, and I will add blue in the temperature. Let's see, maybe something like minus 30. Yeah, something like that. And add a little bit of green for the plants in here. Alright, I like it to be a little bit cold like this. And in the exposure I will put it down, something like that, and add a little bit of contrast. Alright, and highlight, maybe we'll add a little bit of highlight to these areas. And for the shadow, I think it's fine like this. And the white, maybe a little bit too. I will keep the blacks in 0, and let's add a little bit of clarity and a little bit of vibrance to our image. Maybe put up the contrast a little bit, and let's go to the color grading, or let's go to the color mixer actually, and let's mess with the hue and saturation and luminance. So I think I only want to mess with the aquas in here. Maybe put it down just a notch, and let's check the yellows. There is nothing in the yellow, and let's go for the green, and maybe put it down a little bit, and let's add a little bit let's actually put down the blues. Yeah, something like -3, it's good. And let's check the red. Actually, I didn't check the red. There is nothing red in here, so let's go to saturation, and actually nothing for me in the saturation. I will go to the luminance and let's mess with the blues. Yeah, because as you can see in here where we have the blues, that would give us very nice light in there. Alright, let's check the green. Yeah, maybe add a little bit of the green like that, and the aquas. A little bit, just like that. Let's see the before and after. I think I'm happy with this, and again I can always go back and tweak this if I want. That's why I have it in a smart object. So let me just delete this layer mask because we won't use it, and you can see the before and after. Alright, so I think I'm happy with this. Now let's move to the girl layer, and actually let's put the girl on the cloud. So let's make it like top in here, the cloud, and let's select the girl layer and press V where you move to, and then press Ctrl Command T, and I want the girl to be somewhere around here. Yeah, something like that. And then I will put the cloud, and by pressing V I can just make it just right under, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T and make it a little bit bigger, something like that. I think it's good. Now maybe more. Alright, something like this, and then select the girl layer. Alright, something like that. Then I can select them both and put them where I want. I think somewhere in here is fine. Alright, I think I'm happy with this, and maybe if I want to change it I can go back and change it whenever I want. Maybe make the girl a little bit smaller. Alright, now I want to show the body of the girl, so I will select the cloud layer, and then I will apply a layer mask, and I will use a simple brush, round brush with a 0% opacity, 0% hardness, and I will put down the opacity to 30 and maybe 50% below, and I will start deleting using black as my foreground color, something like that. Alright, so I want the cloud to be showing just right in the edges in here, so I switch to white for my foreground color to reveal. And let's add a little bit of shadow in here so we can have that, a little bit of shadow showing in here. Alright, so let's create a layer down, like under the layer of the girl, and call this shadow. And then using the same brush, and I will make sure that I have black in my foreground color, and let's make the opacity 100% and just make one click like this. You can't see it for now because the cloud in here is hiding it. And then I will select the shadow layer, and I will press Ctrl Command T, and by pressing Shift in my keyboard I can just Shift and Alt, and I can just
resize the shadow just like that. Maybe I would put it somewhere around here. Alright, then I will switch to my eraser by pressing E, and I will delete this area in here, and again pressing Ctrl Command T can move this a little bit, even using my arrow keys, and put it down a little bit just like that. And then I will duplicate it by pressing Ctrl Command J, and I will press Ctrl Command T, and I move it to the feet area in here. And maybe I would make it smaller for this. Yeah, somewhere around here. Yeah, I think it's fine. And I want to put down the cloud just somewhere around here. Yeah, maybe I will even delete more from the cloud image, just like that. And a little bit in here. Alright. And I don't like this black in here, so I will select the layer mask and I will put down the flow to 30%, and I will just delete from the edges a notch like that. We will add a little bit in here. Alright, I mean, you can spend more time with this, but I think I'm happy with this, and I think it looks fine. Now let's add a little bit of shadow in here. So let's finish with the shadow for the girl. So let's add another layer and call it shadow, and let's just use the same technique because now we have a flat surface in here. So I'm just gonna one click using black as my foreground color. I'm sorry, I'm in the eraser tool, so I'm just gonna switch to the brush and maybe sample a color of the ground, and then just one click like that, and then press Ctrl Command T and make, using the same technique, Shift Alt or Shift Option, you can make it like this, resize just like this, and I will one click on this check mark. And then I will change the blending mode of this to blending to multiply. And as you can see, we have our shadow. Maybe put down the opacity to like 70% in here. Even resize it even more. Alright, something like that. I think it looks good. Alright, now it's time for us to add a little bit of adjustment to our girl image. Alright, now I think I want to move it a little bit, everything from the girl to the shadows. Or select them all by selecting the shadow and then go to the cloud layer and press Shift, and this will select them all. And I will press Ctrl Command T and I will move it just a little bit. Right in here, and I will press Enter, maybe move it a little bit up, and then select the girl with the two shadows that we have in here, and press Ctrl Command T, maybe move it somewhere around here, even make it a little bit smaller. I'm using my arrow keys to move it.
Alright, I think it's okay for now, and of course I can go back and change it if I want, but I think I don't like this area in here, so I will select the layer mask of the cloud and using my brushes just make it smaller and put down the opacity and the flow. I will try to hide these areas in here just like that. Alright, I think this is fine. Now it's time for us to apply some adjustment to the girl layer, and let me just put this in a group and call this shadows. Alright, now we'll select the girl layer, and then I would go to filter and choose camera raw filter, and I will basically do the same as I did for the background. I will put down the temperature to add more blue like that, and a little bit of green, and put down the exposure. Alright, and the contrast I will put it up, and maybe putting down the highlights a little bit, and I think I will leave the shadow alone, and I will keep everything the same. Maybe the whites a little bit, -5, and I will add a little bit of clarity, and I will put the vibrance a little bit, just like that. I hope it's okay, and let's see. Alright, I think it looks good. Let me just delete this layer mask, and I want also to put a little bit of shadow on the bottom in here. So let's create a new layer on top, and let's clip it in here, and let's call this shadow, and then let's grab a normal brush, like 50% opacity, and let's sample a color. Let's actually use the black color, and let's paint a little bit just like this. Yes, in the edges in here, maybe not in this part, so let's just okay, something like that. Then change the blending mode to multiply, and bring down the opacity to like 50%, to give it that shadow look. Maybe this like 30% or 35. Alright, I think it's okay. Okay, next I want to add a gradient map, so I can blend the image or the girl even more with the background. So I will go to adjustment and choose gradient map, and I will open this gradient in here, and as you can see, this colors is what we have in the foreground and background color. So let's open this black stops in here, the color stop, and open it in here. And let me actually first I will clip it to the girl layer in here. So make sure that is clipped, and then open the gradient and select the first color stop, and let's sample a color from our background, like a darker color, maybe somewhere around here. And for the lightest color, let's select a light blue color, maybe this one in here. Maybe desaturate it a little bit,
something like that. I think it will work, and press OK. And then I will change this to the blending mode of this to color, and of course I will drop down the opacity to like 30 or 40% in here, just to blend everything together. Alright, I think it looks good. Maybe I will put it around 50% or 45. Alright, I think it looks good. Alright, next I will add a curve adjustment. So I'll go to adjustment and choose curves, and again I will clip it to the girl in here, and I will add 1 point in here and bring it down to add a little bit of shadow, and another point in here to add a little bit of contrast. Alright, something like that. Not that much, just to bring up the lights a little bit. Maybe I will even put down the opacity to 70%. Alright. Next I will add a brightness adjustment. So I will select brightness and contrast, and again I will clip it to the girl. And I will add a little bit of brightness, like 35 or 30 in the brightness. And then I will hide this layer mask, or I will invert it by pressing Ctrl I, and I will make it black. And I will use a brush with the same values, the opacity 50-50 in the flow, and change the white as my foreground color, and I will paint a little bit in the face in here. Alright. And a little bit in the arms. Not that much. I think it's good. Alright, now it's time for us to change some of the features of the girl. Alright, so I'm gonna create a new layer on top, and let's call this eyes. Alright, and then I will zoom to the eyes, and I will use white as a color, and I will add a little bit of highlights in these areas in here. So I will just, maybe I will choose this one in here, this brush, and I want to put down the opacity a little bit, and I will add a little bit of highlights in here to give it this look. And the same in the other eye. And switch to unswitch black, add more black in here. All right. It looks a little bit too much, but it's a fantasy image. Yeah, it's okay. I think it looks good. But I will change the blending mode to screen, and I will put down the opacity to like 70%. Or maybe even more. Let's see. Yeah, something like that. I think it's good. And I think maybe I will even blur it a little bit, and let me put back the opacity to 70% and choose the blur tool, I will zoom in. I will blur it just a little bit in the edges in here. And let's see. Yeah, I think it's much better like this. Alright, now I want to add a little bit of red to the lips, so I'm gonna create a new layer again, and I will clip it, and I will call this lips. Or maybe let's finish with the eyes, so I will add a little bit of red in here first. So let's call this eye shadow or eyeliner, I don't know. So let's call it eyeshadow, and let's change the color to this red in here, and let's paint a little bit of red in these edges in here. So I'm using the blur tool, so let's change it to the brush, and I will just put a little bit of red on top and under the eyes, just like that. And I will do the same for the second eye. This PSD will be available for the members, so you can see all the changes maybe I will do between when I finish this, or it will be more details maybe. Oh, but let's see. Alright, I think it looks good, and I will change the blending mode of it to overlay, and then I will drop down the opacity to like 50%, or let's see, yeah, like 70% or 60. And again I will choose the blur tool, and I will blur it just in the edges to give it more, to fade it more with the face in here. And maybe I would put up the opacity even more, like 70%. Alright, I think I like this. And let's zoom out and see. I think it looks good. Now let's do the lips. So let's create a new layer and call this lips. And again, clip it by pressing Alt or Option and one click in between, and this can clip it. And I think I will use the same red, so I will zoom, and then I will paint on the lips. Just like that. Alright, I think it looks good. Now again, I will change the blending mode of this to overlay and put down the opacity to like 50%. And again, using the blur tool, I will blur it in the edges. Let's put the strength to 20%. And I will blur it in the edges in here, and put the opacity even up, something like that. Alright, I think it looks good. If I want to make it a little bit red, so I'm gonna press Ctrl U or Command U, and this will bring up the hue and saturation, and I will put more saturation to the lips layer. Just like that. And put down the opacity to 50%. I think it looks good. Alright, just a little bit of details to the face. Alright, next I want to add some highlights to the hair. So let's create a new layer and let's call this hair highlights, and clip it by pressing Ctrl Alt G or Command Option G, and this will clip it to the other layers. And I think I will use the same brush of the hairs, maybe a normal one, let's see, and I will only use white. So let's make the brush bigger, let's use white, and I will add some highlights in here in the edges. Change the brush to like a softer one, just like this. Alright, now let's change the brush to the hairs brush in here, and I will make it smaller, and I will add a little bit of highlights to the whole places that I think it need more highlights. Alright, something like this, and I will put down the opacity to like 70%. I think it looks okay. Alright, still more things to add, but I think the hair look good. Alright, so I will select the cloud because I think we are doing good with the girl image, and I already created a lot of layers. Alright, so I will select the cloud image in here or layer, and then I will add the same gradient map. So I will go to adjustment and I will choose gradient map, and again I will change this gradient, but first I will need to clip it to the cloud layer. So I will open it and open the gradient and change the first color stop. So I will change it to a darker color, maybe something like this, and then I will change this red color stop to something light, maybe like a soft blue, just like that, and I will press OK. And again I will change the blending mode to color, and this will make the cloud blend more with the background. Alright, let's put down the opacity a little bit to like 70%. Alright, more things to add. I think I will start with this small fish. So I will take it and put it just under the cloud layer, and I will turn it on, and we need to apply the same camera raw. So for this one we'll just copy the same camera raw that we have on the girl. So I'm gonna press Alt or Option, and where you see these two circles in here collapsing to each other, you can just click it while pressing Alt or Option, and this will create a copy and drag it to the other smart objects of the fish. And as you can see, this will make the same camera raw filter on the fish too. And then I want to apply the same gradients map. So again, I will go to this gradients map of the girl, and by pressing Alt or Option, I will go and make a copy of it and drag it on top of the small fish, and I will clip it to the fish in here. And as you can see, this small cute fish in here is already with the same color with the background. And let me just put the opacity of this to like 70% to make it more like blend in more with the background. Alright, so let me just go back to the gradient of the girl, which is this one, and put back the opacity to like 70 or like, to like 50%. Yeah, much better. Alright, let's go back to the small cute fish, and using my move tool, we'll just drag it and put it in here. So I want this fish to be around the leg of the girl. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will right click and choose flip horizontal, and then I will rotate it, and maybe I want it to be somewhere, maybe not that big, somewhere around here, even smaller than this, like this. I think like this is perfect. And blend with the cloud. Alright, something like that, I think. Yeah, something like this. It's cool. Yeah, and then I will hide this tail of the fish. So I will create a layer mask, and I will go ahead and load the selection of the girl. By pressing Ctrl or Command, you can load any selection of any layer. So while I'm pressing Ctrl or Command, I will one click, and this will load the selection of the girl in here. And then I will go to the layer mask of the fish and grab a brush, and let's make the opacity 100 and the flow 100. And using black, I can delete all these details in here. I don't want them to be shown in the front in here. And I will press Ctrl Command D because I only want to delete this tail in here, and I will delete this one too. Alright, now I want to make like a but I think I want to show this part in here, so I will go back to the layer mask and use white this time, and I will show this part of the fish, and maybe this part too. Alright, something like that. I think I will need to move it a little bit, so I will move it somewhere around here, just to have a little bit of space in here. And again, I will load the selection of the girl by pressing Ctrl or Command, but this time I will invert the selection by pressing Ctrl Shift I or Command Shift I, and this will allow me to inverse the selection. And I will paint white this time to reveal all these missing areas of the tail of the fish, and press Ctrl Command D to deselect. Alright, I think it looks better. Now I want to add a little bit of shadow in the shoes of the girl. So I will create a new layer under the small fish, which is in here, and then I will clip it to the girl layers that we already have clipped, and I will call this fish, small fish. shadow. Alright, good. And then I will use black as my foreground color, and let's bring down the opacity to like 50%, and I will just paint some shadow in here just to give it some depth, just like this. And we need to have more shadow because the light is in here, so let's give a little bit of shadow, not a lot because the shadow needs to be down, but just a little bit to be touching the girl in here. Maybe a little bit in this area. Alright, and then I will change the blending mode to multiply and put down the opacity to like 60%, just like that. Maybe even more, like 50%. Let's put it like 60. Alright, and then I will press E to select my eraser tool, and I will erase a little bit from this shadow, just in this area in here. Alright, maybe add a little bit in these areas. Alright, I think it's looking good. Alright, I want to add a little bit of shadow in here too. So to do this, we're gonna add another layer on top of the small fish and clip it to the small fish layer, and we'll use the same technique. We'll add a little bit of shadow in the tail. Just like that, and bring down the opacity a little bit. Alright, now I think it starts to look good, but let me go to the cloud layer and hide a little bit of the clouds on the fish. Let me put down the flow, and using black you can just hide a little bit just to be shown more. Alright, I think much better. Alright, now I think we're doing good with the cloud and the girl and the fish, so let's group everything together. Let's select the girl layer, and then I will go, let's actually select the shadow group that we have in here, and go on top and select the gradient map of the cloud, and then I'm going to press Ctrl Command G, and this will put them in a group, as you can see. And let's call this girl and cloud. Alright, it's actually girl, small fish and cloud, but it's okay. Alright, now it's time for us to add the big fish. So I'm gonna create 2 copies of this. I'm gonna press Ctrl Command J, and again I will apply the camera raw filter. So before I'm gonna create a copy, actually I will just make this with the camera raw filter. So let's copy it actually and put it in here. So let's open the girl and the cloud folder, and we already have the camera raw filter in here applied on the small fish. So I'm just gonna press Alt or Option and hover in these 2 circles and click and take them while I'm pressing Alt or Option, and we have the same camera raw filter in here applied. But we're gonna apply we're gonna actually clip the gradients map, but let's just make a copy before we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Command J because I want to put another one in here. So let's hide this in here, and let's start with this. So I'm gonna go to Adjustment and choose Gradient Map,
and clip it to the big fish, and then open the gradients map and select this color stop, and let's sample dark color actually somewhere around here, and press OK, and sample a light color. I think this will work. Maybe I will even put it a little bit desaturated like this, and press OK, and then change the color mode to color and put down the opacity to 50% or 60%. Alright, I think it looks good. Now I will select the big fish layer and press Ctrl Command T, and I will make it bigger to somewhere like in this range. Alright, and I will want to click on this check mark. Alright, now I want to hide the tail with this terrain here. So I will make a layer mask, and then I will use a brush, and I will make 100% opacity with 100% flow, and let's make the hardness 100% too. And then I will select all this. I will delete all this tail, just like that. Yeah, like this, and then I will switch my foreground color to white, and I will add to the edges, just like that. Alright, I think it's hidden very good. Now I want to add a little shadow in here. So let's put it under the big fish by pressing Ctrl and one click on this new layer icon. I can put a new layer under this layer, and let's call this shadow. And let's use the same technique. I will actually sample a color from the ground, and using my brush I will just one click like this, and then I'm going to press Ctrl Command T and make the brush stretch it actually by pressing Shift Alt or Shift Option. You can stretch it like this and like this one. Alright, something like that. Maybe stretch it even more, and one click on this check mark, and then I will change the blending mode of it to multiply and bring down the opacity to 50 or 60%. Alright, let me just make it a little bit smaller and slimmer. Alright, something like that. Maybe put down the opacity too. Alright, I think it looks good. Now it's time for us to add the second fish. So let's make it visible. And actually let's put it under or like below the girl and the cloud. And let's press Ctrl Command T and make it smaller and put it in here. Yeah, somewhere in here, and one click on this check mark. Alright, now we need to copy the same gradient map, so I'm gonna press Alt or Option from the big fish in here. So I'm gonna press Alt or Option and drag it on top of the other copy, and then I will press Alt or Option and one click in between, and this will clip it to the second fish in here. And again I will hide these parts of the fish to be back from the tree. So I'm gonna apply a layer mask and using the same brush I will delete, using black as my foreground color. I will delete just like that, and I will reveal from the fish in here. Follow the edge of the tree. The same with the other parts. I know it looks weird because of the coloring, but we will fix it in a moment. And let's start fixing this tree in here. So for the color gradient map, I think I will change it back to normal, and let's see. Yeah, I think it looks much better with normal. Maybe put down the opacity to like 70%. Alright, and let's make actually a shadow first. So let's go and select the big fish copy, and then again press Ctrl and one click on this layer mask, and it will put it under it. And let's call this shadow. And then I will sample a color from the ground, and using the same brush I will make with one click like this, and then press Ctrl Command T, and by pressing Shift Alt or Shift Option I can stretch it, make it bigger like this, and drag it on the ground just like that, and change the blending mode to multiply, and bring down the opacity a little bit. Maybe I would put it like somewhere around here, make it, yeah, something like this. Alright, now for us to fix this we need to actually sample like an atmosphere color from here. So let's create a new layer on top of the big fish copy and clip it to our layer, and let's call this light or like fog. Alright, and then I will go to my gradient in here, and as you can see in here I have the gradient set to color to transparency. So whatever color that I have in the foreground, it will be for the color that it will show from color to transparency. Alright, so let's sample a color in the background in here, and then using linear gradient in here, I can just go just right here and press Shift and drag up to somewhere just like that. Maybe I will redo it. I will go from here, and no, that's too much, sorry. Let's redo it from here to around here, and I will do the same for the upper area. I will sample another color, maybe a darker one, and I will go the opposite just like that. Alright, and then I will change the blending mode of this fog to screen, and I will put down the opacity quite a bit to like 50%. And as you can see now, it's blending much better with the environment of the trees, if you can see. So this is the before and after. You can even put it down more if you want. Alright, so we are going there. I think we are almost finishing. We only need to add a little bit of the atmosphere to the whole images, and then we'll add maybe some dodge and burning, and we'll finish. But let's do a little bit of cleaning. Let's select the shadow in here of the big fish copy, and press Shift and select the fog, and press Ctrl Command G, and let's call this fish 2, and do the same with this one. Let's select the shadow and press Shift and select the the gradients map and press Ctrl Command G and call this fish 1. Now we have everything grouped together. So let's see. Alright, now let's add some atmosphere to our image. But I think I want to put the girl a little bit up. So let's select the girl folder and let's select only the girl with the shadow and our fish and also the clouds, yeah. And maybe I will deselect the shadow layer or group, and then I'm gonna use my move tool to bring it a little bit up somewhere, maybe yeah, around here. Alright, I think it's much better like this, but of course you can just go back and change everything, because I always do that. Alright, now let's create a new layer and let's call this light 1, and we're gonna use the gradient for this. So let's select our gradients in here, and always using the color to transparent is the second one, and also we're gonna use the radial style in here, it's the second one too. Alright, so using Alt or Option, I can sample a color. For example, I can sample a color from this light source in here, just like that, and then I will one click. While I'm already selecting my gradient tool, I can one click and drag somewhere like this, and this would create a radial gradient in here. So let's redo this, pressing Ctrl Z, and I can one click and put it maybe a little bit higher, somewhere around here, and then I will change the blending mode of it to screen and put down the opacity a little bit, just like that. And I will do the same in here, maybe in this one, I can just make it a little bit, just like that, and maybe a little bit in here, just to give a little bit of light around our girl. Alright, and I will sample a color from here, and I will do the same, just like that. Maybe from here for the fish, and maybe another one from here. And because we already have the layer set to screen, it will directly add a light to our image, as you can see. And let's go to the other fish, maybe a little bit in here, like that, and another one, maybe a little bit up, just like that, and another one. So I always sample the color and I will create the gradient. Maybe this one, just like that, but I don't like it that much. Maybe I will create a new layer and I will set it to screen, and let's sample like this color, for example. Maybe make another one just like that, and put down the opacity way down to like 20%. Alright, I think it looks good. So let's group them together and call this light. Let's see the before and after. Maybe I will put down the opacity a little bit, like 75% for everything. Alright, I think I like it. Yeah, I think it looks good. Now in this light, I think I will keep it like that, and I will create a new layer on top. And now I want to add some light, even more light, to our girl in here, or the model. So to do that, I will sample a color like from this one in here, and then using the same radial gradient in here, I will put it in the center of our model, just like that. And I will press Ctrl Command T, and I will bring it more like into the face in here, toward the face, yeah, something like that. And then I will change the blending mode to screen. But this time I will actually use a brush with a layer mask on this layer, and I will delete everything that is in the face of our model, just like that. Yeah, something like this. I want only the edges to be applied for this layer. Yeah, and then I will switch back to white as my foreground color, and I will add more light to the hairs in here. Just like that. And I'll add more, just like that. And I will drop down the opacity to 70% or 60%. But as you can see, I don't like this part in here, so I will go to the girl and cloud, and I will add more cloud in here. Using white as my foreground color, you can just add more of the clouds in this part. Alright, I think it looks good. And maybe I will drop down the opacity even more, like 50%. Alright, and then I will select these two, the layer and the group, and press Ctrl Command G, and I will call this lights. And you can do the same for the fish in here, but I think I like it like this. I think it looks good. Next, I want to apply some particles, so let's go back to our folder and let's open this particle texture in here. It's actually a stars image that we're gonna use as particles, which is working very good for this kind of effect. Alright, so we'll one click on this check mark, or actually I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T to rotate it again and make it bigger to fit the side of the canvas. And then I will one click on this check mark, and I will call this particles. Alright, now I will desaturate this texture by pressing Ctrl Shift U or Command Shift U, and this will desaturate it. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl or Command L to open the level adjustment, and I want this to be dark, but I want for these stars or particles that we're gonna use them as particles to be white, so we can change the blending mode of it, and only the white part it will be shown. Alright, to do that you can just click on this white sampling in here, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna choose like a grayish or like almost white color. For example, this one in here that you can see, and just click, and then it will think that it's like it will make everything dark but with that color. Or you know, if you don't like, you can choose another color, for example this one, and you can have more particles, and press OK. And now we can easily change the blending mode to screen, and as you can see we have our random particles in here, and that's what we want. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Command T, and I will put this texture just somewhere around here. Yeah, I think it looks good in here. And then I will apply a layer mask, and using my brush I will delete some of these particles, for example in the eyes and in the places that I don't want them to be shown. Alright, now I'm gonna press Ctrl Command J to duplicate it, and let's delete this layer mask and press Ctrl Command T and make it smaller because I want to put these particles just right here. Alright, perfect. And then I will apply a layer mask, and again I will delete some of them using black as my foreground color. Alright. Alright, now we can put everything in a group by pressing Ctrl and one click, because we only want to select 2 layers, and then press Ctrl Command G, and let's call this particles. Alright, if you want them to look even more than this, you can just duplicate the whole group by pressing Ctrl Command J, and as you can see you can have more particles showing in your image, just like that. And maybe I will drop down the opacity to 50%, and again I will group the 2 groups and press Ctrl Command G, and let's call it again particles. All about particles. Alright, now we are going to apply some adjustments. So let's go to adjustment and choose selective color. And here you can just mess with all the colors of the image. So let's open it and let's start with the red. So you can, it's depend on your taste of what you want. You can add more red or less red. So for me I will put down the red to like a little bit, because I like this orangey color in here. So we'll put it down just a little bit, and you can just play with this while you are looking to your image. So we'll just see what to do. Alright, let's go to the green. And let's put this in here. Alright, let's go to the cyan. And let's jump to the blue and see what we have in here. Alright. And let's actually go to the neutral, and let's affect the whole image from the neutral. Alright, I think I like this, so let me just put back the property in here. And let's see the before and after. Yeah, I think it looks good, but I think I will put down the opacity to 70%. I just like to always put down the opacity to around 70%. Alright, next I will apply a gradient map, but this time which will affect the whole image. So let's go to gradient. It's above the selective, it's the gradient map. And let's actually change this color to this brownish or orangey color in here. Maybe a little bit darker than this. Yeah, somewhere around here. I think it looks good. And then I will change the white to a 50% gray actually, just like that. And yeah, it's 50% brightness in here, and I will press OK and OK. And then I will change the blending mode of this to soft light or overlay. Let's go with overlay and put down the opacity to 0 and go up. And let's see our image. Yeah, I think like around 50%. It looks interesting. Or maybe I would put it down to like 40%. Maybe a little bit. Let's keep it like 30% or 35%. I think it looks good. Alright, now let's create a new layer to do some dodge and burning. Alright, let's call this dodge and burn. Alright, and then I will press Shift F5 and it will open the fill, and I will make sure that in here set 50% gray, and I will press OK. And then I will change the blending mode of it to overlay. And let's choose our dodge tool. And I have the dodge tool set in the midtones. You can choose highlights, but it's a little bit stronger, the highlights. So let's keep it in the midtones. And also the dodge, the burn, it's set to the midtones too, and I will put back the exposure to 6%. And let's start with the dodge, but I think for the dodge tool I like to for the dodge and burning, I like actually to switch between them by pressing Alt. You can switch between dodge and burning. For example, I can dodge this area in here. I can make it wider, as you can see, and then if I press Alt or Option, I can make this area darker. As you can see, this is white and this is dark. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna switch between them. So I will make this area wider, just like that, and maybe this area darker, and I will keep going like this. Alright, I think it looks good, and of course we're gonna put down the opacity more after we are finished. Alright, and let's go to the fish eye in here, because I want to make this a little bit brighter. Maybe this one a little bit darker. Alright, maybe I will actually do more for the final image. I will maybe tweak it more, because now I'm recording live, and when I finish, maybe tomorrow or something, I can add more to this. So don't be surprised if you found the final image a little bit different, because I might went back and added more details. So let's actually make this a little bit darker. and a little bit of highlights in here, and a little bit in this tree too. Alright, I think it looks decent, and of course it needs more time for this, but I think for this tutorial it looks good. Alright, now I want to make a stamp visible layer, but I think before we're gonna do that I will put down the opacity of this to like 60%. Alright, I think 60 is good. And let's zoom in a little bit to see everything. Yeah, maybe like 50% actually. Alright, I think 50% is good. Alright, now I'm gonna make a stamp visible layer, or like a screenshot of what we have on the canvas. It's like on your phone when you take a screenshot, and whatever application that you have or whatever, it will show in the screenshot, so it's the same thing. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift Alt or Command Shift Option E all together, and this would take a stamp visible layer or a screenshot of the screen of actually the canvas only. If I go to my move tool and take this like this, you can see it's another copy of what we have on our canvas. Alright, alright, and then I will apply another camera raw filter on this. So I will go to my filter and I will choose camera raw filter, and I will mess with the temperature a little bit, and maybe I will add a little bit of yellow, maybe blue, yeah, and then a little bit of green, a little bit of green, and maybe a little bit of yellow, yeah, just like that. And the exposure, I think I will put it a little bit down, and the contrast too, just like that, a little bit down the contrast, and highlight maybe just a little bit, and a little bit of the shadows in here, and I think a little bit of clarity, and that will be good. Maybe put up the vibrance a little bit, and then go to the effects in here, and I will add a little bit of grain, like 10. And actually in the basics I think I want to put down the clarity, maybe -5, just to give it this fantasy look to the whole image. If you can see, if I put it more, it will be too much, but if I put it just a little bit, like -4, it gives this really nice illusion of blurriness. Alright, so I will keep it like this, and I will press OK. As you can see, it's just a slight difference, but it looks much better. If you go before and after, I think it looks good. Alright, so finally the last thing that I want to add is a little bit of blur to the edges of the image. And to do that, we're gonna actually switch to the Q mode, or like the selection mode, by pressing Q on our keyboard. You can see this is turned to red, which means now we can actually brush wherever we want our selection to be, or like not to be if you inverse it. So I will put the opacity 100 and flow 100, and I will keep the hardness set to 0%, and I will brush in the areas that I don't want them, that I want them to be blurred. So I will start like in here and in here, just like that, and I will blur this part too and this part. And then what's cool about this selection, you can actually put down the opacity of your brush, and this will make the selection, like it will feather the selection actually. So this is really cool, so you can do that. So I want to make a little bit of blurriness in here, and if you don't like some of the selection, you can switch between black and white to remove the selection in here. If you think this is too much, you can remove it using white as your foreground color, and then switch to black and add to the selection, just like that. Alright, I think this is good, so I'm gonna press Q again on my keyboard. But now we need to inverse our selection, or inverse our selection. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Shift I, or you can go to select and choose inverse, which means now the only thing that it will be blurred is this part in here without this one. Alright, so let's go to filter and blur, and I will go with lens blur. Alright, so as you can see, this is the preview, this is before and this is after. So I'm gonna put the radius to like 30% or 32, and I will keep everything in here set the same, and you can see this is before and after. And you see these particles that we added, it gives very nice effect to the whole image, and I will press OK. And then press Ctrl D to deselect. And this is the before and this is the after. As you can see, it looks really nice. And I think I will add a little bit of gradients in here, or maybe I think this is actually good. Alright, I think this is all. Maybe I will add more details tomorrow because I'm not gonna post this today. So alright, so let's just group this adjustments. So I'm gonna select them and press Ctrl Command G and call this adjustment, and this is final. And let's see the before and after. Alright, I think it looks good, and that will be all. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed and you liked this tutorial and it was a little bit helpful for you. If you try it, make sure to let me know on Facebook, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe and comment and leave a like, and have a nice day. Thank you for watching.